Hi. So, we will continue our discussion on spatial informatics. We are discussing on spatial analysis. In this particular analysis, what we mean to say that we will be discussing on primarily on spatial data mining and other related areas, right, that gradually see in coming 1 or 2 lectures. So, as we have seen in the last 2 lectures, there is more of a overview of what is data warehousing, data mining, how data mining is different from our standard query processing or standard OLTP type of things. So, today we will be more look more focus on the spatial data mining, right. So, that it has all the properties or feature set of a generic data mining. Along with that, it also have some other properties or should say that a spatial context that we will take up in this today's talk and our subsequent talks, right. So, why it is little bit different from our traditional non-spatial things, right. So, mostly we start with spatial data mining. So, what we do when we try to mine data, we primarily are looking for patterns, right, unless a specific queries in case of standard OLTP or SQL type of things. Here also where we are looking for some pattern which may help us in prediction, forecasting or finding some anomaly or something like that, like overall doing some analysis or something some knowledge discovery from the data set, right. And but we should keep in mind, like I told you in previous lectures also, that nevertheless our traditional data set, this query systems lies, because that is the source of the data, right. So, that is the source of the data what we extract from the things, right, and then we build up some say model, maybe some functional model, or what we see some of the things like association rule and type of things, which helps us in finding out that whether there is a inherent pattern into the things, right. Like as we discussed in non-spatial, like whether there is a pattern of purchase of items in a departmental store on a particular day of a week, or on weekdays, weekends, or on a particular season, or it varies over the region. So, these want to look at the patterns. If there is an inherent pattern, then I want to do my overall mechanism. In case of departmental store, it may be the business goal is the maximize profit or maximize revenue income. Then I want to place those things in a such a way that will, like as there is a common thing what we say that bread butter, right. If I buy bread, I am likely to buy butter, right. So, the bread butter racks or the storage in a departmental store should be nearby, right. So, it go on picking up the things. So, these are closely associated, right. It is unlikely that the person who is buying bread will buy shoes at the same time. It is no as such association per se, right. So, keeping those two racks together may not help in maximizing the filling up the what we say that market box or the cart of the our customer. So, that is why in a spatial context whether there is a relationship between things. So, some of the things which we have seen, that some of the historic examples which are very popular in literature. One is 1855 Asiatic cholera in London. So, a water pump identified as the source, right. So, there was the outbreak of cholera in London, and it was very difficult for them where it is coming from, right. The search space is pretty large. It may come from waterborne, it may come from some other type of things, environmental or any such type of epidemic. There may be multiple sources. So, there are different search space you want to boil down to the things, right. Even if it is waterborne, which part of the water is causing problem is a problem. So, what they did, considered one of the very earliest application of spatial analysis is that they plotted some geographer plotted this where are the cholera hotspots are there, and they could find that they are concentrating more, originating more on a place, and then could be able to find out there is a water pump which is creating that water is contaminated. They could examine and say because of maybe connecting with some contaminated water or sewage line, etc., and things are there. Now, that is the doing this analysis can boil to the things, right. So, again that in near Colorado River, it is people are having healthy gum, and as there are much fluoride in the water. So, fluoride and healthy gum relationship may be there in doing the analysis, or what we say that continental drift theory or continents fits into pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, maybe a large scale spatio-temporal data sets. So, some of the recent thing like finding a particular epidemic cluster like Cancer cluster to investigate environmental health hazards, that may be one of the things. Crime hotspots for planning police patrol is another major aspects which are used extensively these days, because number of police resources or number of security resources a particular say city or particular region have is may not be sufficient to cover the whole region in a what we say in a regular or in a giving importance giving similar importance to the things, right. So, there will be always a disparity between the demand to cover the things and the supply of the things, right. But on the other hand, crimes are not happening everywhere, right. So, even if you are having say 10 police team, the crime may be 7, but you need to cover a region of 100, right. So, if I can have a predictive model that this, or I can say these are the crime hotspots and these are the likely to be the next crime which is going to happen in coming days, coming week, coming months, then the patrolling can be rearranged like that, right. Even after a crime has occurred, what is the possible path this culprit may take to exit from that place may be a thing which may help the things to guard the region, right. So, and there are other things like environmental, like bald eagles nest on tall trees near open water, that may be a things which is a interesting fact. Nile virus spreading northeast to USA to southwest, unusual warming of a Pacific Ocean, that is El Nino affects whether in USA or whether in our India, some part of the things. So, these are some of the things which are something events which are correlated, some of that are co-located or co-evolved, right. If this happens type of the things. Like some of the things may not be pretty interesting, like if I say the temperature of next town to IIT Kharagpur is very high. So, it is likely that here also temperature will be high, right. But if it makes sense that if there is a temperature fluctuation dip in the south and it has some pattern that it will get after 2 days, it gets affected in south of Bengal, the same type of feature. If there is this sort of pattern is there, that may be interesting to look at, right. So, some may be trivial, which are not so called interesting patterns, there may be pattern, but not so called interesting pattern, but we are looking for interesting pattern which our data mining or spatial data mining may help. So, what is a pattern? A frequent arrangement, configuration, composition and with regularity it happens. We can set up a rule, law, method, design, description of the things, a major direction, trend and prediction, a significant surface irregularity or unevenness, right. So, these are the things pattern, which is not a pattern, which is purely random, haphazard, chance, stray, accidental, unexpected, or without any definite direction, or it can be accidental, casual, like absence of pre-arranged, relatively unimportant, and for what the causes, etc., I cannot investigate or find out. So, when we talk about now the data mining, spatial data mining per se, so there are some metaphors like mining nuggets of information embedded in large database. If it is a very large database, as we have seen that spatial databases are pretty large. So, there are nuggets of informations which need to be from interesting, useful and unexpected spatial pattern nuggets from a large database, and mining looking for those nuggets into the things, right. So, these are the things, and when we talk about spatial data mining, we search for the spatial patterns, that whether there is a spatial patterns or there or not, and non-trivial search as automated as possible, reduce human effort. So, that human intervention must be minimum, and the search should be non-trivial, right. So, what we are looking for. So, it should be interesting, useful and unexpected unexpected patterns, right, or in other sense it should not be a trivial thing, right, which is expected, that thing. Sun rises in the east may not be it may be a regular pattern, but may not be a interesting unexpected pattern, right. If there is an unexpected pattern, that may help in my overall business process. So, that what exactly these miners or spatial data mining activity we want to look at that. So, just to consolidate, one is that non-trivial for search interesting and unexpected spatial pattern, non-trivial search large search space for possible hypothesis. So, it is a pretty large search space, like for Asiatic cholera, that the things we there the cause may be water, food, air, insects, right. So, there are several parameters for each of them. So, if you look at the overall search space, it is quite high, right. So, water delivery mechanisms, numerous pumps, even if we concentrate on water, there may be different type of water delivery mechanisms, like say pumps, rivers, ponds, wells, pipes, etc. So, it is difficult to handle this search space. So, we require some mechanism, some hypothesis, some heuristics to look into the things, right, to how to handle this pattern. Interesting, useful in certain application domains, setting off like in this case setting off this identified water pump saved human life, right. So, this is a direct effect. So, unexpected pattern is not common knowledge, right. So, this sort of patterns should not be a common knowledge, then it is not a, we do not have to dig so much data and to find out that what is that pattern is, may provide a new understanding of the world, right, like cholera connection leads to the germ theory and etc. different type of things may come. So, what is not spatial data mining? We have already seen simple querying on the spatial database, find neighbors of West Bengal given the names of the boundary of all states, that may not be spatial data mining, right. Or testing a hypothesis via a primary data analysis, like if the space is not large and the secondary data analysis to generate multiple possible hypotheses, then it may not be considered to be a problem or case for spatial data mining. Uninteresting or obvious pattern in spatial database, right. Heavy rainfall in city A is correlated with the rainfall in city B, which two cities are not so far, there is a small typo, those cities are not so far apart, or those cities are quite nearby or next to next cities, and then it is obvious, right. So, common knowledge that nearby region will have similar rainfall, similar temperature and type of things, or similar weather condition, right. So, mining non-spatial data can be there, but that we do not say as spatial data mining, but definitely mining non-spatial data can be there, that can be useful for our context also, that may help us in giving some supportive secondary information, like in like mining like product sale, BER, correlated etc. that may not be spatial, but in some cases it may give some of the things which help us in better mining process. So, why we need spatial data mining? Two basic or fundamental reason, consideration of use of certain application domains, right. So, that demands, like if I look at traffic or weather type of things, they look for that whether we can find out some interesting pattern, even rainfall pattern etc. Provide fundamental new understanding, right. So, looking at finding a fundamental new understanding of the things, like whether there is this is the way it goes on type of things, right, of a particular phenomena. So, there can be very various application domain, scale up secondary spatial statistical analysis to large database data sets, right. So, our standard statistical analysis we can scale out to large data sets, find the epidemic cluster to locate hazardous environment, right. So, we find out that where are the clusters forming for the epidemic and go on, prepare land use maps for satellite imagery, preparing land use land cover maps and predict habitat suitability for endangered species. So, this is all this may of my this our spatial data mining or what we are discussing may help in supporting this application domain. Finding new spatial patterns is or maybe also interesting, right. Find groups of co-located geographic features can be interesting to look at. So, there are several application domains for spatial data mining, there is several needs from their application domain, and it helps in finding interesting pattern from large scale spatial data sets. So, few more new understanding of geographic process for critical question, that how is the health of the earth planet or predict effect of El Nino on weather economy of a say on India of India. Traditional approach manually generate and test hypothesis. So, it was there, spatial data is growing, it is increasingly growing in a very fast rate, right. So, it is very difficult if not impossible to have some traditional analysis approach for analyze this data. So, spatial imagery, GPS track, sensors, highways and type of things. Number of possible geographic hypotheses too large to explore manually, right. Large number of geographic features and locations, number of interacting subsets of the feature now grow exponentially, and those things are there, right. So, SDM may reduce the set of possible hypotheses. So, it may reduce what we are discussing, that the overall search space, that will help in reducing the search space, identify hypotheses supported by data for further exploration using traditional statistics. So, initially reducing the search space, and then if I want to do a specialized exploration or more granular exploration, I can we can always fall back to our traditional statistical methods to look into the things. So, these are things which are possible. So, next things which come up, that who are the major actors in this SDM or spatial data mining. So, one definitely the domain expert, right. If I am looking for meteorological data, I require a met scientist, right. If we are looking for say something on traffic analysis, I require a traffic management person, traffic engineers and type of things we can help, we can interpret the data. So, identify SDM goals also, what we are looking for, it is a huge data, and for a particular things which are the which type of things we are looking for is needed for these things. So, it is a identifying SDM goals, statistical data sets, expert size required, describe the domain knowledge, well known patterns, that is correlates etc., that can describe, validate new patterns. If there a new pattern is there, he or she, the expert, needs to validate the pattern. So, this is pretty important. On the other hand, we require a data mining analytics, right. So, based on the expert domain expert, this analytics will frame these algorithms, right, or different procedures, data mining procedures to work on this data and find interesting pattern. So, that is needed, right. So, I require a data mining analytics on the other end. So, helps identify pattern families, SDM techniques to be used, explain the SDM output to the domain expert. So, this is required, and it is a feedback loop between the things, right. Domain expert explains something and implements, see that whether it is correct, if there is something is required and type of things. By that what it happens, that you able to set up the goal very precisely, and also the algorithm and process to required to reach that goal from the input data set also set on the or precisely set. Now, this can be used for that mining thing. So, it is a joint effort, features selection of the patterns for future exploration. So, this are needs to be looked into. So, keeping all this in mind, if we see, so there is a domain expert, right, there is a data mining analyst, right. So, domain experts sets the goal that this is the thing is required, and based on that data discuss with the data mining analyst and set the what is the problem to be solved. Based on this goal, what is the exact problem to be solved, and that is definitely based on what is available in the database or the spatial database things into the things. Once that is there, then that data mining analysts go on using different data mining algorithms, which in turns involved spatial query to extract data from the things, right, and this goes on type of things. Then this is output, as the output will be the hypothesis, where verification, refinement, visualization will be there, right. So, this is a in a circular fashion. So, it is a technique used, a feedback, tuning the things and go on this so long it is satisfying that goal, etc. Once is there, then the output is that based on this hypothesis is basically pushed to the for verification, refinement and visualization, and that interpretation and actions to be taken by the domain experts, right. And here again different type of basic techniques, like what data mining aspects we want to look at, whether it is association rule mining or classification problem or clustering problem, that inputs get from the to this DM analyst, right. So, this is the so to say the overall big story or overall picture of that how this data mining activity will go on and type of things. So, choice of methods, approach to mining spatial data, pick spatial feature, use classical data mining methods, right. So, approaches to mining spatial data. So, pick spatial, so we need to look at what are the feature set, what are the classical mining methods and use novel spatial data mining techniques. So, it is how what are the different techniques, what are the methods need to be adopted for this mining. Possible approach, define the problem, what are the different possible approach, define the problem, capture the there is special need, explore data using map and other visualization, try reusing classical data mining methods. If it is not there, then we need to develop or incorporate new methods, evaluate chosen method rigorously and performance using tuning as needed, right. So, these are the possible approaches. Families of SDM patterns, common prediction, where is a phenomena occur, right, or these are the location prediction, there are spatial interaction and hotspots. So, if we look at the families of spatial patterns, so what are the different groups? One is that location prediction, where next the things will happen, right. So, it is more of a location prediction or finding that what next or what next location things will be there. There can be spatial interaction, which subsets of the spatial phenomena interact, right. So, there can be different spatial phenomena, out of that which spatial phenomena interact, and other interesting work is on the hotspot, which locations are usual for some particular activities or particular species, etc. So, these are the hotspots. So, like we are talking about crime hotspots, we are talking about say in a city of traffic, the congestion hotspot and so on and so forth. So, these are the things. So, it may be noted that other families of spatial pattern may be defined. So, you can always define based on your domain. SDM is growing field, right. So, it is there are a lot of new things, new techniques are coming up. So, which should accommodate new pattern families, right. So, that means it is a what we are seeing that there are it is a new field, new techniques, technologies are coming up. the volume and the type of data being collected changing, like now we are having a lot of sensory data for different IoTs or drone and type of things of different resolutions. So, the volume of data in a different scale and type of things. So, if we look at the location prediction, as we told that there are 3 typical category of things. If we look at the location prediction, questions like where will the phenomena occur, which spatial events are predictable, or how can a spatial event be predicted from other spatial events like equation, rules and other methods, etc. So, it is location prediction, or where integers, like example like where an integers bird nest, or which areas are prone to fire given maps of vegetation, drought, etc., which should be recommended to a traveler in a given location and type of things, right. So, these are different type of location related, and there can be spatial interaction, which spatial events are related to each other, which spatial phenomena depends on other phenomena. Like here we have seen that like ecology species, that Nile crowl, Egyptian plover and type of things. Similarly, earth science, if the feature set climate disturbance events like wildfire and type of things. So, what we see, so there are different type of feature sets, and we want to look at that how which spatial phenomena depends on other phenomena and type of things, right. Like wildfire spread may be related to the dry forest, may be related to lightning and high temperature, windy weather and type of things. So, these are the things which are there. So, there are some few examples out here. So, and finally, the hotspot, the question address is the phenomena spatially clustered, right. So, if it is happening, whether they are clusters, right, like as we see that some sort of a things like as that cholera epidemic or this swine flu and type of things, whether there is a cluster, right. So, which spatial entities or cluster are unusual. So, this it forms a cluster, and then it is unlikely that should be a cluster at that particular spatio-temporal location, means at that location on a particular time. Which spatial entities say are common characteristics. So, if there is a cluster, whether this type of things are common characteristics between the different spatial entities. So, this helps us, or this enables that some hotspots in a region, right, like maybe say in a IIT Kharagpur region where different hotspots are there. So, that is the phenomena has something. So, like example cancer cluster to launch investigation, crime hotspot to plan police guards and type of things, right. So, so there can be disease type of cluster which is going on in a particular things, then investigate that whether this is waterborne or some sort of a other type of issues are there, or like in case of a crime hotspot, it will help in police patrolling. Also try to look at that how this means happening of the or these crimes manifested in over a time and so. So, defining unusual, comparing group neighborhood or interpopulation. How do I say unusual? Say I say the temperature is unusually high. So, that means with respect to the particular region, right. So, it is a neighborhood or on the interpopulation, based on that we need to be identified. Significance probability of being unusual is high. So, it is if I want to find out that which are the features which are pretty high in become unusual, those need to be identified. So, what we have seen or discussed today's class, today's lecture is basically looking at the basics of spatial data mining, why that is required, right, why required, which I can say there is a spatial pattern which is not a pattern, where which are not considered to be spatial data mining, and different aspects of the things like where what are the different choices and methods, and to find out or for mining or for spatial data mining, what are the different type of approaches and so on and so forth, right. So, this with this basic or fundamentals of the spatial data mining, let us conclude our discussion today. What we will do in the subsequent lectures, we will deal some more aspects of some of the related to the spatial data mining, or more or less all are related to the thing or spatial analysis in our subsequent lectures. Thank you.